But could I ask my colleagues whose names appear on the stage, Andrea, Martin, Andy and Jill, could I ask you guys to come and join us?
Let me say how much fun and how energizing that last session has been for all of us. And trying to make sense of the distance we've traveled, not just over the past 2 days, but over the past year since the first Creative Central Asia, I thought it might be quite useful to reflect and to get some reactions from the UK members of the Creative Central Asia Steering Committee, and also Andrea as our host for that last major session. So perhaps I could start looking towards you, Jill. I wonder, what are you hearing in the report backs? What are you hearing in the report backs where you're sensing some real common interests, some real shared priorities? I mean, are there things that are resonating across the region for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's quite apparent is that people are at different stages. I think just even the last set of presentations showed that people are at different stages on this journey. And I think that's great, because something like this allows people to share that and allows them to explore where they are on that journey. What I suppose I feel definitely there's much less tension in the forum, whether that's with each other or whether that's with political tension. I mean, I think that it just feels like we are at a next stage, which is wonderful actually, because I did actually wonder in a year how much could be achieved. So no, definitely beginning to see the same. There are similar messages. We are talking about similar things, but coming across all the groups. No, I am really delighted that in a year so much progress has been made, and it feels like that last session just took us that really big step change to how this particular network, and I think that's what it will work in the future. So I think it's very exciting and just very pleased to be part of it, and thank you for letting me be part of it. Great.
Thank you. Andy, you've worked this year on some of the more granular follow-up action, the creative economy mapping exercise that you led here in Kazakhstan with colleagues. Are you sensing a similar sort of spirit in the room that Jill's describing? You've been on the journey. I mean, or are you noticing any gaps between members and countries within this network?
Well, I think there is a big journey, and I think it's the journey is one of actually beginning to recognise the gaps properly. You know, because before you can say either we know nothing, or we haven't got much to learn, or we need to learn everything. But actually, when you begin to see some of the details on the ground, you can begin to position yourself in relation to be honest, how far do we need to go? What gaps do we need to fill? And I think that's the essence of this is, in a sense, learning home truths. Is rather than the over expectation, but actually being able to make a measurement about how far you need to go, and then take some concrete steps to do that. And I think that seems to be quite a progression, really, from the big excitement of the big idea to the cold reality of some actual steps that need to be done. Some are easier than others. And I think also, so that's one dimension, and I think that sort of counterbalances also the other good feeling about creativity that obviously sort of goes round, but actually what it really means in terms of putting it into practice. And I think the sober analysis of that is coming home, and actually who to ask for it, and to recognise that actually there are resources within country resources within region that can help, as well as then articulating with international linkages. So looking at all those different levels, I think, is important as well, rather than just saying, hope the British Council is going to do it all, or anyone else, or a foreign foundation. Because this was one of the points that I think came through what we were saying, is that there are lots of isolated initiatives and lots of good ideas. Continuity, or in the trendy terms, resilience and sustainability, is the problem, because you get some training and then it goes, the next generation doesn't have it, etc. So it's that bigger picture over the long term that this has got to be made real, which I think is starting to come through, which I think is really positive.
Thank you. Andrea, you're somebody who likes to think in terms of concrete steps. Andy's talked about concrete steps. What are you feeling and sensing at this moment in the conference?
In terms of the last 12 months, it's transformational. I mean, I've spent the past 2 days stealing your ideas because everything I've heard, and Jill and I were sitting next to each other and going, oh my God, that's good. Oh, that's fantastic. And I think clearly those ideas have always been there. I think last year everything was a little bit more cautious, a little bit more studied, a little bit more, quite a lot of analysis. This year, it's full tilt. This is who we are. These are the great businesses we're running. These are the ideas we have. And it just I felt the energy. I think in very concrete terms, it's now the difference between the energy of individuals to the energy of a group. And what I say is, you need to be seen out together as a group with something to say and something to offer. I loved the ideas around telling local stories, small stories, big impact, because you're very clever people. So my practical stay would be, get organised, be seen out together in your own local cities and areas, be coherent that you've got things to say and a contribution to make, and persist. The other definition of resilience is you just keep on keeping on. And I think you're all very good at that. And I'd like to think, Jim, that this group will be designing next year, because I think they've just officially overtaken us.
Thank you, Andrea. Andy, you said not being dependent on either British Council or other external actors. Andrea, you've talked about this group, this alumni network, if I can call it that, informing and shaping next year's agenda. Maybe I can come on to this idea of next year in just 1 minute, but Martin, last year you used a glorious expression. You said, I think we're onto something big here, is what you said. Do you still stand by that?
I do like to be reminded of what I said in my sober moments. Well, to answer your question, Jim, I think I'd go back to July of 2017, when I first got an email from somebody called Jim Butteri, who I'd never heard of. And you suggested that the British Council wanted to explore the idea of putting on a 3-year program in Central Asia, which would explore the possibilities of creating a Central Creative Asia Forum. And if one thinks of the distance that has been traveled between the planting of that idea and the execution of it, first of all through the conference of last year, and secondly into this conference, I think that the distance that has been traveled is enormous. And I completely agree with what's just been said. I think the achievement is astonishing. Already, in 18 months, an enormous amount has been achieved, and that was in evidence in all of the sessions this afternoon. And I don't think that's to be underestimated. And by the way, I congratulate you and your team for helping to make that happen, because because I haven't done very much. It's you and your team that have worked fantastically hard to make this the success that it is. I mean, I do really mean that I think an enormous amount has been achieved already. I have two further reflections. I work in the private sector in an investment business, and people are pitching ideas to me, to the company that I work for all the time. Hundreds and hundreds of ideas. And sometimes we say that ideas are cheap. What really matters is execution. And actually, if we have a mantra in our business, it is execution, execution, execution. So I want to sort of underline the point that I think we're all making, which is that we need to get together and keep on going, to use the phrase that's already been used, but to develop and execute well. It's all about the doing. It's all about creating the structures which lead to development, which lead to deepening, which lead to widening, broadening out, getting more people involved, creating momentum, and thereby developing something that is properly sustainable. And then one final thought, very quickly, because we've also had a presentation which is significantly about skills. This is enormously important for all countries, including the UK, by the way. There are different kinds of skills that you need successfully to develop a cultural and creative economy. You need creative skills, which I think in all of the countries in this room, we have seen evidence of in abundance. There is no shortage of creative skills. In some industries, you also need technical skills, you know, in film, television, all this kind of stuff, you need technical skills. But you also need business and commercial skills. And what I hope that we might be able to see evidence of going forward, Jim, perhaps into next year, is a development whereby we can start to build more bridges between art and commerce, between creativity and commercial enterprise, because in the end, that's also what you have to do. You have, and by the way, it's already happening. I mean, we've seen over the last couple of days a number of presentations which have shown what can be done to create successful creative enterprises in this region by marrying art and commerce. And that I think is also very important for the purpose of creating long-term sustainable creative economies in every country in this region.
Thank you, Martin. In the fashion of a Kyrgyz rock star, I'm sort of half tempted to say execution and then see what comes back from the audience. But to open it up to those of you in the audience, marrying up of art and commerce, more work on skills. What's going through some of your minds? Is there a comment or a question any of you would like to put to this group here? Now, just to get a sense of the mood in the room, if we are thinking about the next 12 months ahead, not what can we do for you, but what we can do together to take this agenda forward across Central Asia?
Hi, Aziz, Kyrgyz Republic, KG Labs. So what I learned, this is my first visit to this forum, and what I learned from this and my kind of lessons are kind of stories that I learned and best practices from the region that kind of could be implemented in our countries and our regions. And what I believe could be really good is kind of create some digital stories and some blog posts about those kind of cases that have been presented today, not only PDF presentations online, but also kind of real stories and interviews with them. That might be really helpful to share this information in the region so that, you know, best practices could be exchanged and more gained for a wider audience than only one who presented here. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Dana. I'm from Ernst & Young. Since creative industries is very developed in UK, could you please share some of the lessons you learned in marrying the arts with corporate sector, or some challenges you had, so we could learn? Thank you.
Gosh. That's a very good question, but it's an immensely difficult question to answer, because there are some particular differences between the different industries. You know, let's not forget that until 25 years ago, you worked in the television industry, or you worked as an architect, or you worked as a fashion designer, or you worked as a film director. You never worked in the creative industries because the concept is still new. Well, I mean, you very kindly say that it's well developed in the UK, and it is, but it's still new to us. But in order to try to answer your question at a level of generality, I think I would just say that what I just mentioned about a marriage of art and commerce, of building bridges between the creative world and the business world, that's the challenge. It's not easy to do. And by the way, in my business, we've had some very big hits, but we've had a lot more terrible failures. And I think that one of the things that one needs to understand about the creative industries in general, and actually, Jim, we haven't talked so much about this, is that it's a success and failure business. We have some successes. We like to have successes. You know, theatre hits, blockbuster art shows that everybody loves, movies that everybody goes to. But in my experience, failure is more often achieved than successes. And the trick is to learn from your failures. And as somebody who's had lots of failures, you know, I've had to learn that lesson the hard way. But that is one of the lessons, I think, from the experience of the UK, that we're good at some things, and we get a reputation for doing certain things well, but we're not geniuses, and we also make mistakes, and we also have failures. It's about learning from the failures.
Another thing to that, I mean, I think it's not just learning from failures, it's creating systems to manage failures, because we have a term in English which is sort of humorous, but actually it gets to the truth. It's called creative accounting, okay? So, which is often a term that is about how accountants defraud people or whatever, but you have to have accounting codes that work for the creative sector, and that's knowing which things to count and in which ways. Creative accounting is very, very important, because you don't want to be caught in a outdated triple bottom line spreadsheet which doesn't work for the creative economy. That is very, very important. We've had to rethink what it means to make a profit. And what it means to run a business. So that's one element of that. The other big element is being a skilled juggler, or to put it in a slightly more formal way, to be a good portfolio manager. And this responds to the point about managing risk. is that if you have a lot of events, then you can bear failure in some of them, as long as you have success in others. So don't get focused just on single components, but that's why you have to deal with a lot of different issues together. And I think they're management issues. They're also about how you organize work, and it's part of to understand the way that the creative sector has changed that we recognize those. And finally, that also reflects on any policy issues, because policymakers have to wake up to the fact that this is a different sort of industry organized in different ways, and you can't apply the same sort of output expectations, apart from success, but not every time.
Thank you. I mean, over the last 48 hours, there's been a tremendous emphasis in this room on collaboration and combining disciplines and approaches. And our colleague from Hull City of Culture, who is sadly not with us at this moment, at the end of the conference, talked about the role of the producer. And I think that resonated, the idea of the creative producer who pulls all these different disciplines together. That seemed to resonate with this group. Can I come to...
Yes. It's really clear that there's a great appetite for developing this creative Central Asia, and there's a huge amount of talent in the room. So it's been a real pleasure to be here. But I'm just wondering, I'd like to ask the British Council if perhaps next year some of the programme, or maybe a full day of the programme, was actually given over to the people of Central Asia to share how they've developed, because I think that's what they've been saying this afternoon, that they're looking for a forum or a space to share the work that they're doing and to make those connections and to share that learning. So it's just to ask the British Council, is that something that they would do next year?
I think we're open for any suggestions at all, and I think Andrea's point about groups of people in this room taking greater ownership of and really directing the agenda of next year's conference, because I'm sensing there's an appetite for a third year of the conference. We would like to support that, but I think it's how we blend this group, last year's group, and actually make it even more Central Asian.
Ну, у меня не вопрос, у меня два предложения. Во-первых, может быть, я, конечно, забегаю вперед немножко, но мне очень понравилось настоящий форум, потому что он действительно это то, о чем я, и не только я, наверное, ну, во всяком случае, у нас в Кыргызстане очень многие люди как-то задумывались о том, что необходимо как-то подытоживать всю ту деятельность, которая очень активно происходит вот в культурной сфере в Кыргызстане. И хотелось всегда какой-то такой зонтичной какой-то вот структуры, я не знаю, неформальной, а вот именно такой креативной, чтобы все люди могли как-то общаться на этой площадке, что-то создавать новое и идти вперед дальше, потому что вся эта деятельность, она на самом деле, она имеет очень много общего, и очень многие между собой так и так сотрудничают. Но я думаю, что вот мы все это работаем ведь не только для себя. Мы работаем и делаем и локально, и глобально. Так вот, в глобальном плане, мне кажется, опять-таки, может быть, я немножко вперед забегаю, но мне хотелось бы обратиться к Британскому совету с предложением, чтобы через там какое-то определенное время, когда будет возможность сделать какие-то итоги, будет возможность показать какие-то наши наработки, достижения, подключить какие-то такие структуры. Например, в Кембридже есть ассоциация Central Asian Studies, да, которая замечательно работает в культурной сфере в том плане, да, то есть чтобы наша деятельность, вот наши революции, скажем, и эволюции в Центральной Азии, да, культурные, чтобы они стали известны миру через вот такие вот каналы, да, вот это вот одно предложение. Ну и не только, конечно, не только эта ассоциация, но и какие-то другие во всем мире. Это вот первое предложение, есть ли такая возможность. И второе предложение, вы знаете, мы когда говорим о культуре, о культурной среде, о городской культурной среде, да? Вот об архитектуре очень много было сказано, то есть это какой-то такой урбанистический, очень много, ну, урбанистического такого точки зрения подходов, да? Вот я не увидела аутентичности. Вот здесь вот. Нигде. Вы знаете, дело в том, что я занимаюсь ремеслами, я эксперт по нематериальному культурному наследию, да, и для меня это такой очень болезненный момент. Вот все города, ладно, если это столица, там, где дорогая земля, где все это упорно, какие-то западные модели, да, если говорить о провинциальных городах, вот тут наша коллега, вот Джангл Тургамбаева упомянула город Санта-Фе, да, который по населению является вторым в США по количеству миллионеров, да, на душу населения. То есть и там ведь вся архитектура зиждется на традиционных культурных традициях архитектурных. У нас в Центральной Азии богатейшие культурные традиции в этом плане, архитектурные. Мне кажется, вот этот момент, облик нашей культуры. Если мы будем говорить о каких-то аутентичности, да, а облик наших городов будет прозападный, проурбанистический, да, то куда нам лепиться с нашими ремеслами, да? То есть вот мне кажется, что все-таки вот этот момент нужно учитывать. Спасибо.
We are running out of time, so I'm going to just ask for 2 final quick comments and then wrapping up.
Да, еще одно хочу предложение очень быстро сказать. British Council в основном работает с государственными организациями, а креативных людей больше в частных структурах. И поэтому я бы хотела предложить больше работать, вернее, в том числе работать и с частными лицами, такими вот, как здесь сидят подряд. Вот. И тогда, может быть, British Council мог стать мостом между частными креативными инициативами и лидерами и государственными структурами, которые могут помогать этим лицам развиваться.
Я быстро и очень серьезно. Знаете, меня просто потрясла панель, которую вел мужчина, имя которого я забыла, и вообще с англосаксонскими именами не дружу. Вот он здесь сидит. Да, Джеральд, да? Джеральд. Дело в том, что контент этого форума, он был 2 уровней. Первый – универсальный и креативная экономика и так далее, и так далее. И второй, очень важный, то, что раскрыла эта панель. И мне кажется, что она была не случайной. Потому что я, наверное, своем, но очень важна тема колониальности. Это вопрос шага вперед. И то, о чем говорили на этой панели, понимаете, как получается такая вещь, как будто вот с одной стороны Британия, и она говорит о своих современных проблемах колоний. При этом, когда она говорит, или когда с Центральной Азии, или центральные азиаты о себе, они говорят только про креативную индустрию. Но ведь и то, и другое универсальны, и, может быть, об этом тоже нужно говорить, потому что это вход в развитие, вход в такой честный диалог. Спасибо.
Very brief addition back to what Aziz mentioned about showing the progress probably next year, just showing our cases. I think adding commercial aspect is quite important, and I have a feeling that we are all quite ready to talk about commercial aspects, so we can easily discuss the numbers, the challenges, timelines, and all the problems we are facing, how we solve all this. And I'm sure it will be quite a good step forward for all of us, just to be more active and talk about doing rather than thinking. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to have to call time on the questions because I'd just like to invite my colleagues to just share a few final reflections. Jill, any last words from you?
Is that on now? Yeah. I think the authentic point made by yourself around craft is absolutely crucial. As far as I'm concerned, you don't bring in something to a country for it to then become something that's very important. You have to grow it from the ground. So I think that last conference, we talked a lot about that at the last forum, and I think probably you're right, it's not been mentioned as much over the last 2 days, but I got the feel from people that was understood. So I think it's worth pulling out that the authenticness is absolutely crucial, absolutely crucial.
Andy, you have the talking stick at present. What's your final view?
Well, again, I mean, I think just to reinforce that the cultural and creative industries, cultural sector doesn't develop apart from the skills and activity of everyone here. And I think there are lots of ideas. I think the real challenges that remain are about these, the way that you manage transition between rethinking the problem between the commercial sector and the state sector, and the particularities of how you change models there. Also how you incorporate the informal as well. I mean, these are just operational issues, but they're the real detail of how you actually do things, which don't rely on the old models of us seeing the world through the lenses of only a commercial or state sector, but actually about doing the cultural and creative industries.
Thank you, Andy. Andrea, as the person who kicked off this session originally, how are you feeling at present? What's your sort of final reflection?
Well, Jim, I'm feeling quite perky. Pretty perked up by this afternoon's session. To echo probably what everyone else has said, all of this is about bringing the best of yourselves and your whole selves. Authenticity is absolutely the key. You're not anybody else but yourselves. I think that it's your job as the talented activists in the room to build those practical bridges between commercial, independent and state. And I don't think you have to do it in terms of fixing everything, because that's like boiling the sea. I think you can take baby steps, and then I think British Council can be the platform that can amplify those activities in a really powerful manner and showcase them not only once a year but during the course of the year. So you build the bridges, Jim will be the platform that it rests on.
Thank you. I'm feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders at present. But let me just say, from the British Council perspective, we are committed to supporting the creative and cultural economy within Central Asia. That is an area of interest for us, and I think being honest about our interests, we have an agenda. We think it's a good thing for the UK and this region. We think cultural value and economic value combine well to produce a potent brew which is good for society. So we think it is in all of our interests to work together effectively. Finding the right blend and the right way of working together and the right level of resources is the $64,000 question. What I can commit to is taking this conversation forward with my own teams, our regional teams, our country teams, and of course our steering committee members, of which Timur, Danyar, and Ashkat from our original three countries. They can be your conduit, your ways in to influence us, and we will have a conversation within the next few weeks about what we may do together to take Creative Central Asia forward into a third year. But we don't want this to be a single conferencing moment and that's it. We do want it to be an ongoing experience, a shared endeavour. But I'm going to give the final word to our chairman of Creative Central Asia, Martin.
In the immortal words of Martin Smith, 2017, I think we could be on to something.